funny how much time we spend looking back. We analyze, we replay, we rethink every decision, every failure, every missed opportunity, as if somehow by obsessing over it, we can change it. But has that ever worked? Has looking back ever moved you forward? No. See, there's something about the past that tries to hold on to us. It wants to keep us stuck, trapped in old memories, old mistakes, old pain. And for some reason, we let it. We hold on to what hurt us, what disappointed us, what didn't go as planned. We let our minds wander back to moments that are already gone, as if reliving them will bring them back, as if regretting them will somehow make them right. But here's the truth. The past is done. No matter how many times we replay it, it will never change. And if we're not careful, we will spend our lives staring into a closed door, missing every open one in front of us. I remember a time in my life when I was caught in that cycle, a time when I couldn't move forward because I was too busy looking back. I kept asking myself, why did this happen? What could I have done differently? How did I let this slip through my fingers? I would go to bed thinking about it, wake up thinking about it, and carry it with me throughout my day like an invisible weight on my shoulders. And the worst part, the more I thought about it, the heavier it became. Until one day I realized something. I was not reliving the past. I was being held hostage by it. I had given my mistakes and my disappointments the power to shape my present. I had made my past my home, and as long as I kept living there, I would never move forward. You see, the problem with looking back is that it distorts our vision. It either makes the past seem better than it was, or it makes the pain seem bigger than it really is. And when you keep your eyes fixed on what was, you lose sight of what could be. Imagine trying to drive a car while staring in the rear view mirror. You won't get very far before crashing into something, will you? That's exactly what happens when we live in the past. We try to move forward, but our focus is behind us. So we keep hitting the same walls, falling into the same cycles, repeating the same mistakes, not because we're incapable of change, but because we're looking in the wrong direction. The past was never meant to be a place where we live. It was meant to be a place where we learn. There's nothing wrong with looking back to reflect, to understand, to take lessons from what we've been through. But at some point, we have to take those lessons and move forward. So the question is, why do we hold on so tightly? Why is it so hard to let go of what's behind us? Maybe it's because the past is familiar. Even if it hurt us, at least we know it. The unknown, that's scary. Moving forward means stepping into something uncertain, something unpredictable, something we can't control. And that's uncomfortable. But comfort is not the goal. Growth is, healing is, becoming who we were created to be is. And that only happens when we stop looking back and start walking forward. Think about the people who inspire you the most. The ones who seem unstoppable, unshaken, resilient. Do you think they never faced disappointment? Never felt heartbreak? Never made mistakes? Of course they did. But they didn't let those things define them. They decided that their past would be their teacher, not their prison. They chose to move forward. And that's the choice in front of you today. You are not your past. You are not your failures. You are not your regrets. Whatever happened, whatever choices you made, whatever pain you endured, it does not have the power to keep you stuck unless you give it permission to. So I need you to ask yourself, what am I holding on to that is holding me back? Is it a mistake you made, a relationship that didn't work, a door that closed, a version of yourself that no longer exists? Whatever it is, today is the day you release it. Not because it wasn't real, not because it didn't matter, but because it's over. And what's ahead of you is far greater than anything behind you. The past has had enough of your time. It's time to move forward. There's something interesting about the way we experience negative feelings. We don't just feel them, we interpret them. We assign meaning to them. And more often than not, the meaning we choose isn't the truth. It's just a reflection of what we already believe about ourselves. Think about it. You face rejection, and instead of seeing it as redirection, you see it as proof that you're not good enough. You experience failure, and instead of recognizing it as a lesson, you take it as confirmation that you were never meant to succeed. You go through disappointment, and instead of understanding it as part of life's process, you convince yourself that life is against you. But what if the problem isn't the negative feelings themselves? What if the problem is the way we see them? Our perspective has the power to turn pain into purpose or purpose into pain. It can take a closed door and make it a dead end, or it can turn it into a sign that something better is ahead. And this is where everything shifts. Because if we can change the way we see negative emotions, we can change the way we experience them. I remember a time in my life when I was drowning in disappointment. Nothing was working the way I thought it would. I kept trying, kept hoping, kept believing, but it felt like every step forward led to another setback. And I started to wonder, is this a sign? Maybe I wasn't supposed to do this. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I should stop trying altogether. But then something shifted. Not my circumstances, not my situation, just my perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? I started asking, what is this teaching me? Instead of seeing rejection as failure, I started seeing it as refinement. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to quit, I started recognizing them as opportunities to grow. And do you know what happened? The weight that I had been carrying, the frustration, the disappointment, it lost its power. Not because the struggle disappeared, but because my perspective changed. You see, negative emotions are not meant to stop you, they are meant to shape you. But if we don't recognize that, we end up fighting battles that don't even need to be fought. We end up resisting things that are actually meant to develop us. We end up running from discomfort when that discomfort is the very thing pushing us into growth. Look at the moments in your life when you felt the most pressure, the most pain, the most doubt. What if those moments weren't meant to break you, but to build you? What if what you've been calling setbacks were really just setups? Imagine an athlete training for the biggest race of their life. Their muscles burn, their lungs ache, and they feel exhausted. Now they have two choices. They can interpret that pain as a reason to quit, or they can see it as evidence that they are getting stronger. The pain is the same. The difference is the perspective. And the same is true for you. You're not weak because you feel fear. You're not failing because you experience doubt. You're not lost because you've faced disappointment. Every negative feeling you have is an opportunity to reframe the story you're telling yourself, because that's what this is, a story. And if you don't take control of the narrative, your past pain and past insecurities will write it for you. So what's the story you've been telling yourself? That you're not enough? That you're always going to struggle? That your past defines you? That nothing ever works out for you? If that's the story, I need you to recognize something. It's not the truth. It's just a perspective. And perspectives can change. You can decide right now to see things differently, to look at your pain and say, this is not the end of me, this is the making of me. To take your disappointments and say, this is not rejection, this is redirection. To embrace your struggle and say, this is not a sign to quit, this is my training ground. Because the truth is, the way you see your situation will determine the way you experience it. And the moment you shift your perspective, everything else begins to shift with it. Your struggle is not your story, your response is. Purpose changes everything. It changes the way you see challenges, the way you process setbacks, the way you respond to negativity. Because when you have a clear sense of purpose, your focus shifts. You stop seeing obstacles as stop signs and start seeing them as steps. You stop letting pain define you and start letting it refine you. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, how is this shaping me? The problem isn't that life gets hard. The problem is that too many of us are walking through life without a clear why. And when you don't have a why, every hardship feels pointless. Every setback feels personal. Every negative feeling becomes overwhelming because there's nothing anchoring you to something greater. But when you have purpose, when you know that there's something bigger than your pain, you stop being so easily shaken. You start realizing that even your struggles have a place. Even your disappointments are part of the process. Even the things you thought were working against you might actually be working for you. I remember a time when I wanted to give up. Everything in me was tired. The weight of disappointment, the frustration of feeling like I was running in circles, the exhaustion of trying and trying but not seeing the results I expected. And in that moment, it would have been easy to quit, to convince myself that maybe this wasn't for me, that maybe I had misheard God, that maybe I wasn't meant for this path. But then I remembered why I started. I remembered the vision that kept me awake at night, the calling that wouldn't leave me alone, the deep knowing that I was created for something beyond what I could see in that moment. And just like that, the burden shifted. Not because the journey got easier, but because I remembered why it was worth it. Purpose gives pain meaning. It reminds you that what you're going through is not just suffering for the sake of suffering. It's shaping something in you, developing something in you, preparing you for something greater than what you could have imagined. Look at the people who inspire you. The ones who have overcome, who have defied the odds, who have walked through fire and come out stronger. Do you think they had it easy? Do you think they never questioned themselves, never battled fear, never felt like giving up? Of course they did. The difference is they had something greater pulling them forward. And that's the difference between people who rise and people who stay stuck. Not talent, not luck, not resources, purpose. Because when you have purpose, you don't stop just because things get hard. You don't let one failure define you. You don't let negative emotions control you. You recognize that even the darkest moments are part of the story. So if you feel like you're in a season of frustration, if you're battling doubt, if you're struggling with disappointment, don't focus on what's going wrong. Go back to your why. Ask yourself, what is this moment teaching me? How is this challenge preparing me? What is the bigger picture that I need to hold on to? Because when you are anchored in purpose, nothing can stop you. It's time to stop being discouraged by the process and start trusting it. The pressure you feel is not there to break you, it's there to build you. And when you know that, when you truly believe that, nothing, not fear, not failure, not even your own doubt can hold you back. Your purpose is bigger than your feelings. Keep moving forward. There's this idea that we have to feel ready before we move, that we have to wait for the fear to go away, the doubt to disappear, the clarity to come before we take the first step. But what if I told you that waiting for the right feelings is the very thing keeping you stuck? What if I told you that action is what brings the clarity, the confidence, the courage, not the other way around? So many of us are waiting to feel motivated, waiting to stop being afraid, waiting for the perfect moment. But the truth is, the perfect moment will never come. If you are waiting for the fear to leave before you start, you will never start. If you are waiting to feel qualified before you will never move. Because fear doesn't go away with time. It only loses its grip when you take action. Think about it. The things you are confident in today, the things you do with ease, weren't always that way. At some point, you were uncertain, hesitant, maybe even afraid. But you did them anyway. And now, they don't scare you the way they used to. Why? Because action created confidence. You didn't think your way into courage. You moved your way into it. This is where we often get it wrong. We think we need more time to process, more time to prepare. And while preparation has its place, there comes a moment when planning turns into procrastination, when thinking becomes an excuse for not doing. And if we're not careful, we will spend our entire lives preparing to live instead of actually living. I remember a time when I was paralyzed by indecision. I had all these dreams, all these ideas, but I kept telling myself, I just need more time. I just need to feel more ready. But the longer I waited, the more distant those dreams became. And one day it hit me. The problem wasn't that I needed more time. It was that I needed to move. Because action is what breaks the cycle of fear. Action is what turns possibilities into realities. Action is what takes you from where you are to where you are meant to be. And even when you don't have all the answers, even when you don't feel fully prepared, every step you take brings clarity. Every step you take strengthens you. So what is it that you've been putting off? What is the thing that's been burning inside you? The thing you know you're meant to do, but you've been waiting for the perfect moment. Because if you're waiting for the fear to leave, it won't. If you're waiting to feel fully ready, you never will. But what you can do is start. You can take the first step, no matter how small, and let action do its work. And maybe that's the real challenge. Not eliminating fear, but moving forward with it. Not waiting for certainty, but choosing to trust that clarity will come as you go. Because movement is what opens doors. Movement is what brings opportunities. Movement is what turns dreams into something real. But the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. Fear thrives in stillness. Doubt grows in inaction. The more you hesitate, the louder the voices in your head become. The ones telling you that you're not capable, that it won't work, that it's safer to just stay where you are. But that's a lie. Staying still doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you safe. And life is too short to be stuck in the same place, thinking about all the things you could have done but never did. So what if instead of waiting to feel ready, you just moved? What if instead of waiting for the perfect conditions, you started with what you have? What if instead of letting fear be a stop sign, you let it be a signal that what's on the other side of it is worth fighting for? Because that's the thing about action. It doesn't just change your situation, it changes you. It shifts your mindset. It builds your resilience. It proves to you that you are capable of more than you think. And the moment you take that first step, no matter how small, you realize something powerful. Fear never had the power to stop you. You were just giving it permission. So now the question isn't, are you ready? The question is, are you willing? Because your future isn't waiting for the right feelings. It's waiting for you to move. Look around you. Who are the voices in your life? Who are the people speaking into your dreams, your decisions, your identity? Because whether you realize it or not, the company you keep is shaping the direction of your life. It's easy to think we're independent, that we make our own choices, that other people's opinions don't really affect us. But that's not true. We are constantly being influenced by the people we spend time with, the conversations we engage in, and the environments we choose to stay in. And if we're not careful, we will find ourselves carrying mindsets, beliefs, and even limitations that were never ours to begin with. Have you ever noticed how being around certain people makes you feel smaller? How some relationships leave you second guessing yourself, questioning your worth, doubting your abilities. Sometimes it's not our own insecurities holding us back. It's the voices we've allowed too close. And then there are those people who lift you, who challenge you to grow, who see more in you than you see in yourself. Being around them is like stepping into a mirror that reflects not just where you are, but where you could be. They don't let you settle. They remind you of your strength. They push you to keep going. Even when you feel like giving up, both types of people exist in our lives, the ones who drain us and the ones who elevate us. The question is, which ones have you given the most access to? Because here's the truth. Your environment will either feed your growth or fuel your fears. You can have all the talent, all the vision, all the potential in the world. But if you are surrounded by people who do not believe in you, people who constantly plant seeds of doubt, people who are more comfortable with the version of you that plays small, you will struggle to move forward, not because you're incapable, but because the voices around you are louder than the voice within you. And this is why relationships are not just about connection, they are about direction. The people closest to you are either leading you toward the future you desire or keeping you bound to the past you need to leave behind. So it's time to evaluate. Who are the voices shaping your decisions? Who are the people influencing your mindset? Who are the ones speaking into your identity? Because if you surround yourself with negativity, with complacency, with people who are comfortable staying stuck, you will find yourself stuck too. Not because you want to be, but because you've absorbed their mindset without realizing it. But when you surround yourself with people who think bigger, who believe bigger, who live with intention and purpose, something shifts. You start to see new possibilities. You start to break out of old patterns. You start to believe that growth is possible for you because you see it happening around you. And this isn't about cutting people off. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that some relationships are meant to be loved from a distance, while others are meant to walk with you into your next season. It's about understanding that your energy is valuable, your dreams are valuable, your mind is valuable, and not everyone should have access to it. So if you've been feeling stuck, feeling uninspired, feeling weighed down by self-doubt, take a look at your environment, the conversations you engage in, the mindsets you're surrounded by, the voices that have the most influence in your life. Because more often than not, your breakthrough isn't waiting on more effort. It's waiting on better alignment. You are not meant to stay in spaces that shrink you. You are not meant to live in circles that stifle your growth. The right people will remind you who you are. The right people will challenge you to step up. The right people will push you forward when you feel like giving up. And maybe that's the shift you need today. Not more motivation, not more strategy, but a change in who you're listening to. Because the voices you allow into your life will shape the person you become. Choose wisely. Your future depends on it. There comes a moment when you realize that holding on is exhausting. Holding on to old pain, to past mistakes, to what could have been, to who you used to be. You think that if you just keep carrying it, if you just keep replaying it, somehow it will make sense. Somehow it will feel lighter. But it never does. It only drains you. It only keeps you stuck in places you were never meant to stay. Letting go is not easy. It requires you to release something that has become familiar, something that you have wrapped your identity around. And that is why so many people struggle with it, because even when the past is painful, it is still known. And stepping into the unknown, choosing to move forward without carrying the weight of what was, can feel terrifying. But the weight was never yours to carry. You were never meant to live your life carrying shame, carrying guilt, carrying resentment, carrying disappointment. You were never meant to walk into new seasons dragging the pain of the past behind you. At some point, you have to make the decision that moving forward is more important than holding on. It's easy to think that letting go means forgetting, that if you let go of the pain, it means it didn't matter. That if you release the disappointment, it means it didn't shape you. But letting go is not about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let it define your future. It's about deciding that you are more than what happened to you. You are more than who hurt you. You are more than the mistakes you made. There was a time when I struggled with this. A time when I thought I had to hold on in order to prove that it mattered. That if I let go, it would mean I had lost. That if I moved forward, it would mean I was giving up on what could have been. But then I realized something powerful. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is winning. Winning your peace, winning your joy, winning your future back from the things that try to steal it. Because the truth is, the longer you hold on to what was, the less space you have for what could be. You cannot receive new things with clenched fists. You cannot step into new doors while holding on to closed ones. You cannot build a future while being bound to the past. And maybe that's what has been keeping you stuck. Maybe it's not that you lack the ability to move forward. Maybe it's that you are still carrying things that were never meant to go with you. Maybe the weight of old pain, old expectations, old versions of yourself has been slowing you down. But here's what you need to know. You have permission to release it. You have permission to step into what's next without carrying what was. You have permission to forgive yourself, to stop replaying the past, to stop wondering what if, to stop looking back at something that can no longer be changed. And I know sometimes we think that letting go means we have to have all the answers, that we have to fully understand why it happened, what it meant, what the lesson was. But sometimes closure is a choice. Sometimes peace is a decision. You do not have to wait for everything to make sense before you release it. You do not have to wait for an apology that may never come, for clarity that may never arrive. You can decide today that your healing is more important than your need for understanding. Because the reality is, not everything in life will make sense. Not everything will come with an explanation. But even in the absence of understanding, you can still choose freedom. You can still choose to move forward. You can still choose to stop letting what hurt you hold you hostage. And I get it. Letting go takes courage. It takes faith. It takes the willingness to step into something new, even when you don't know what's ahead. But I promise you this. What is ahead of you is worth it. Your peace is worth it. Your purpose is worth it. Your joy is worth it. So whatever it is you've been holding on to, whatever weight has been keeping you stuck, today is the day you release it. Not because it wasn't real, not because it didn't matter, but because your future is calling. And it's time to move forward.